Welcome to our channel History of Coins, where we explore the hidden gems of numismatics. In today's video, we're diving into the fascinating world of rare wheat pennies. These classic coins hold an incredible history, and some are worth millions. So today, we are gonna uncover the rarest varieties, their values. So make sure to watch the complete video and find out if you have one of these. Now let's continue our today's video. Top 1 today, we're traveling back more than 100 years to the days of World War I, silent films, and horse-drawn wagons on cobblestone streets, to discover one of the most iconic and surprisingly valuable coins in American history, the 1917 Lincoln Wheat Penny. This isn't just a piece of copper. It's a snapshot of another time, a small, worn coin that carries the weight of a century. And for the right collector, one special version of this coin has been sold for an amount that could buy you a luxury car or a small home. So, stick with me, because this is more than a penny story. It's a treasure hunt. First, let's talk about the coin itself. The Lincoln Wheat Penny, also known as the Wheatie, was first introduced in 1909, and it marked a major change in U.S. coin design. For the first time, a real person, President Abraham Lincoln, was featured on American currency. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the coin became an instant classic, and it remains one of the most beloved coin designs among collectors even today. On the front, you'll find Lincoln's right-facing portrait, his gaze steady, his shoulders firm, a tribute to one of the most enduring figures in American history. On the reverse, two stylized wheat stalks curve along the sides, framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. Beneath that, you'll see the powerful Latin motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. Now, the 1917 wheat penny was struck in 3 locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, marked with a small d; and San Francisco, marked with an S. Millions were minted, but most were used in everyday commerce. They passed through the hands of soldiers, factory workers, and families buying bread, stamps, and train tickets. So what makes some of these pennies incredibly valuable today? The answer lies in 2 words: rarity and condition. And in a few cases, something else even more powerful: errors. Let's start with condition. Most 1917 pennies you'll come across are heavily worn, faded, and scratched. After all, they're over a century old. But a very small number have been preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition: no wear, crisp details, and deep original color. These coins were likely pulled from circulation early and kept safely in coin albums or old boxes by early collectors. Now add in mint errors, and you've got something really special. One of the most well-known errors for the 1917 penny is the double die obverse. This error occurred during the minting process when the die, used to stamp the design into the coin, struck the coin twice, but slightly misaligned. The result? A bold, unmistakable doubling effect, especially noticeable in the words "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1917 itself. You can actually see the letters and numbers doubled with the naked eye on some examples. It's not subtle, and collectors go crazy for it. Another type of error collectors look for is the off-center strike, where the coin was not properly centered during minting. The image appears shifted or even cut off. These are rare and make each coin completely unique. You might also hear about die cracks, which appear as raised lines or ridges caused by worn or damaged dies. In some cases, these can form dramatic patterns across Lincoln's face or through the wheat on the reverse, something that turns a common coin into a true collector's prize. And don't forget about the mint mark. Some varieties with the S mint mark from San Francisco are considered more scarce, especially in high grades or with doubling. Combine that with a known error, and you've got a coin that very few people on Earth own. Now let's take a moment to imagine this. You find a 1917 wheat penny tucked inside an old drawer or inherited coin jar. Maybe you bought it at a flea market. You take a closer look and notice the date looks a little funny. Maybe the letters have shadows, or there's a strange texture to the coin. You flip it over, feel the weight, and realize this isn't just a relic. It's something special. You send it off for grading, and the results come back. It's uncirculated, with a bold double die obverse, and it's certified by one of the top grading services. Now it's not just a penny anymore, it's a piece of history. A collector's dream, and when it was put up for auction, this exact kind of coin, flawless, rare, and with a dramatic error, fetched a truly incredible price. That tiny copper cent was sold for a mind-blowing $87,000. Yes. You heard that correctly, $87,000. For a 1 cent coin minted over 100 years ago. Next time you're going through your change or digging through an old collection, don't pass over those pennies too quickly. That 1917 wheat penny might just be the ticket to a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Top 2, we're talking about a small copper coin with a big story, the 1939 wheat penny. Now, most people see a penny and don't think twice. It's just 1 cent, a coin you drop into a tip jar or forget about under your car seat. But every once in a while, there's a coin that carries more than just monetary value. It carries history, rarity, and if you're really lucky, a massive payday. So, sit back, get comfortable, and listen closely. Because the 1939 wheat penny might just be one of the most overlooked coins in American numismatic history. And there's a version of this coin that is sold for more money than you might ever expect from a single cent. Let's start with the basics. The Lincoln wheat penny, sometimes called the Wheatie, was minted from 1909 to 1958. These are the pennies with two elegant wheat stalks curved around the words 1 cent on the back and Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the front. The 1939 version fits right into this series, but it comes from an especially interesting moment in history. Think about the year 1939. America was emerging from the Great Depression. Europe was descending into the chaos of World War II. Technology, industry, and society were all shifting rapidly. Yet here we have this small, copper coin, just under an inch in diameter, that reflects the resilience of a country on the brink of global transformation. In 1939, wheat pennies were minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, marked with a D; and San Francisco, marked with an S. While tens of millions were produced, only a few survive today in top condition, and fewer still with the kinds of rare errors that collectors dream of. Now, here's where things get exciting. Because while the 1939 wheat penny is already a beloved piece among collectors, a few select examples are in a completely different league of value. Why? Because of minting errors, rare variations, and the ever-important condition of the coin. Let's break it down. First up, one of the most desirable errors in the 1939 penny is the double die obverse. This occurs when the coin die strikes the planchet, basically the blank coin, twice, but slightly out of alignment. What you get is a doubling effect in the inscriptions like Liberty, In God We Trust, and sometimes even the date 1939. You may not notice it right away without a magnifying glass, but when you do, it's unmistakable, and it's worth serious money. Another highly collectible error is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin isn't properly aligned during minting. The design appears shifted, sometimes dramatically. Some 1939 pennies have been found with up to 50% of the design missing, yet still show enough detail to be identified. Those kinds of striking errors are like snowflakes. No two are ever the same, making each one a unique treasure. Then there are die cracks, cuds, and clipped planchets, each one a type of error caused by damage or wear in the minting equipment. These errors can leave raised lines across the coin, missing corners, or strange blobs of metal. On a common coin, they might go unnoticed. But on a 1939 wheat penny in otherwise pristine condition, they turn that coin into something truly exceptional. And don't forget about the proof-like strikes, or coins with unusually strong luster and sharp details. These weren't necessarily made as official proofs, but due to a fresh die or unusual minting pressure, some coins come out looking stunning, like they were just made yesterday. Collectors go wild for these. Now let's talk about condition, because it's just as important as the errors themselves. A coin graded MS 65 or higher, which stands for mint state, means it's nearly perfect. No scratches, no dullness, no signs of circulation. Combine that kind of condition with a known error or variation, and the value of the coin can skyrocket. Imagine finding a 1939 wheat penny in a forgotten collection or an old roll from your grandparents' attic. You look closer, and you notice the Liberty looks just a little off. The date seems shadowed. Maybe the edge looks clipped, or the surface gleams brighter than the others. You get it appraised, send it off for grading, and the results come back. It's genuine. It's rare. It's in near-perfect condition. And then the big question hits. How much is it worth? Well, here comes the moment we've all been waiting for. because one very special 1939 Lincoln wheat penny, featuring a rare mint error and preserved in beautiful mint state condition, was once sold for an astonishing $85,000. That's right, at $85,000. For a penny. A coin that originally cost just 1 cent to use, now worth more than many people's annual salary. So don't let that little copper coin in your drawer fool you. The 1939 wheat penny might seem common, but the right one could change your life. Always check the date. Look for errors. Examine the details. Because top 3, we're unlocking the secrets of a humble copper coin that could be worth a small fortune. But we're talking about the 1942 Lincoln wheat penny. Now, most people wouldn't even glance twice at a penny from 1942. It looks old, sure, but valuable? Rare? Worth thousands? Most would laugh and say, it's just a penny. But not you. You know that with coins, the smallest details can make the biggest difference. And the 1942 wheat penny is one of those coins. Before we dive into what makes this coin valuable, let's set the scene. The year is 1942. The world is at war. The United States is just beginning to feel the full weight of World War II. Rationing, war bonds, and patriotism fill American homes. And in this moment in history, the U.S. Mint continues to strike coins for everyday commerce, millions of them. Among them, the 1-cent piece featuring President Abraham Lincoln on the front and 2 wheat stalks on the back, that to most people, it was just a penny. But to collectors today, the 1942 wheat penny tells a much deeper story. Let's start with the design. On the obverse side, you have the strong, familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln. His image is surrounded by the words, "In God we trust," liberty, and the year 1942. On the reverse side, you see 2 curved wheat ears flanking the words 1 cent and United States of America, with the motto, E pluribus unum, just above. That it's classic, clean, symbolic of American resilience. But here's where it gets interesting. In 1942, the U.S. Mint was already preparing for dramatic changes in coin production. The war effort meant copper and other metals were being redirected for ammunition and machinery. Just 1 year later, in 1943, the penny would be made out of zinc-coated steel instead of copper. But 1942 was the last full year of the classic copper penny, and that makes it historically significant. But history alone doesn't make a coin valuable. So what does? Errors. Rarity. Condition. Let's begin with errors. The tiny mistakes during minting that turn ordinary coins into rare collector's pieces. One of the most famous errors with the 1942 wheat penny is the double die obverse. This means the die that stamped the coin hit it twice by accident, but just slightly off-center. The result? Doubling in the inscriptions, especially in the date 1942, the word liberty, or even in God we trust. When you look closely, you'll see ghost-like shadows or doubling of the letters and numbers. These aren't just imperfections. They're extremely sought after by collectors. Another error to look for is the off-center strike. This happens when the blank coin isn't perfectly aligned when it's stamped. Part of the design is off the edge or shifted. Some off-center strikes are only 5 or 10% off, but occasionally you'll find dramatic ones, up to 50%. These errors make each coin unique, and more valuable the more off-center it is, as long as the date is still visible. There are also clipped planchet errors, where part of the coin is literally missing because the blank was miscut before striking. These result in crescent-shaped gaps or odd edges. It's rare, and it's worth money. And then there's one of the rarest oddities of all. Some 1942 pennies were accidentally struck on the wrong planchet, like those used for dimes or foreign coins. These mistakes weren't supposed to happen, but they did. And today, if you find a 1942 penny struck on a silver-colored planchet or with the wrong size and weight, you could be holding a coin that very few people in the world have ever seen. But let's not forget about condition, the silent factor that can multiply a coin's value overnight. Most 1942 pennies were used in everyday life. They've been passed through thousands of hands, worn down in pockets, left in jars, and spent without thought. So finding one in mint state condition, with no scratches, bright color, and full details, is exceptionally rare. Collectors grade coins using the Sheldon scale, with a top score of 70. A coin graded MS 65 or higher, especially with a known mint error, is something that gets serious attention at auctions. It's not just about having the coin. It's about having the right version, in the right condition, with the right history behind it. Now imagine this. You come across a 1942 wheat penny. Maybe it's in an old box. Maybe it's part of a coin roll you bought at a flea market. You look closer. The two in the date looks slightly shadowed. The edges are crisp. The surface gleams. You send it in for professional grading. Weeks later, the results come in. Double die obverse, nearly perfect mint condition. Authentic, certified. And then it happens. Collectors start to notice. Bidders step up. A quiet auction quickly becomes a bidding war, and the final hammer falls on a price that seems almost unbelievable. That 1942 Lincoln wheat penny sold for an incredible $83,000. Yes, you heard that right, at $83,000. For a 1-cent coin that most people would never think twice about. So the next time you're sorting through coins, whether they're yours, your parents', or even from an old estate sale, take your time. Look closely. Flip through every wheat penny, especially those from 1942. You just might be holding a small piece of history and possibly a fortune. Top 4, we're diving deep into the incredible story of the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that seems ordinary at first glance, but hides some of the most fascinating secrets in American coinage history. So stay with me, because if you own one of these in a certain condition, or with one specific and rare error, you could be sitting on a coin worth more than a brand new luxury car. Now let's start by setting the scene. The year is 1944. World War II is in full swing. The country is unified behind the war effort, and nearly every aspect of American life is focused on victory overseas. Materials like copper, nickel, and steel are in high demand for making bullets, tanks, and communication equipment. And in the middle of all this, the U.S. Mint is still producing coins for daily use. Enter the Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that had already become a staple in American pockets since its debut in 1909. The obverse side proudly features President Abraham Lincoln, facing right, his image etched with strength and humility. The reverse showcases the now iconic wheat ears framing the words 1 cent and United States of America, along with the Latin phrase e pluribus unum. But 1944 wasn't just another minting year. Here's where the story gets really interesting. In 1943, just 1 year earlier, the mint made a drastic change. Due to the war, copper was urgently needed for ammunition. So, in 1943, pennies were struck in zinc-coated steel, the famous steel penny. While they looked silver in color, they were often mistaken for dimes and rusted easily. It was a bold move, but it didn't last long. By 1944, the mint went back to using copper, but not the same copper as before. Instead, it used recycled ammunition shell casings from the battlefield. These shell casings were melted down and repurposed to strike the 1944 pennies. So every 1944 penny you find carries not just monetary value, but wartime legacy. It's a piece of history, literally forged from the remains of war. But now, let's talk about what turns an old penny into a collector's dream. There were billions of 1944 pennies minted. Yes, billions, but that doesn't mean they're all common. Because a few rare versions were struck with minting errors, and those are the ones that get serious attention. The most famous and rarest of all is the 1944 steel penny. Wait a second, you just said they switched back to copper in 1944, right? Yes, that's true. But by accident, some leftover steel planchets from 1943 were still stuck in the machines and got used again in 1944. The result? A few 1944 pennies were struck on steel instead of copper. These are extremely rare. We're talking fewer than 40 believed to exist across all mint locations. If you ever come across a 1944 penny that looks silver or is magnetic, stop everything and get it checked. It could be one of the rarest Lincoln cents in the world. Now let's go beyond just steel versus copper. There are other rare errors from 1944 that collectors go crazy for. Double die obverse, DDO, where the coin was struck twice on the front, creating a visible doubling in the date or the words Liberty and In God We Trust. These are easy to miss unless you look closely, and incredibly valuable when found off-center strikes, where the coin design is noticeably shifted because the planchet wasn't aligned properly during minting. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more unique and collectible the coin becomes. Clipped planchets, where a section of the coin is missing due to a misfeed during cutting. These clipped 1944 pennies are very rare and always catch the eye of serious collectors. Now let's talk about condition, because condition is everything to a 1944 penny with one of these rare errors is exciting. But if it's also in mint state condition, meaning no scratches, brilliant color, and sharp detail, then its value climbs fast. Coins are graded on a 70-point scale, and those graded MS 65 or higher are considered investment level. And believe it or not, there are 1944 error pennies that have been stored carefully for decades, untouched, uncirculated, and waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Imagine this. You find an old coin collection from your grandfather. Inside is a roll of wheat pennies. You pull out a 1944 coin. It looks brighter than the others. Maybe the date looks strange. You notice the color is off. You get it tested. It's magnetic. It turns out it's steel. Not copper, that it's real. It's rare. And it's in incredible condition. You send it off to a professional grading service. It comes back authenticated, graded high, and now collectors are lining up to bid. The final price. That rare 1944 wheat penny sells for an unbelievable $81,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $81,000. For a penny. 1 cent that most people wouldn't give a second glance. But that's the magic of coin collecting. What seems ordinary can turn out to be absolutely extraordinary. So, if you've got old coins, wheat pennies, or even change sitting in your drawer right now, go check. Look at the date. Feel the weight. Use a magnet. Examine the details. Because you never know when you might be holding something incredibly valuable. Top 5, we're diving into the fascinating world of a seemingly simple coin, the 1948 United States wheat penny. On the surface, it looks like just another old penny. But trust me when I say this coin hides stories, secrets, and a surprising value that will blow your mind. So, if you think all pennies are the same, listen carefully and get ready to discover why the 1948 wheat penny deserves your full attention. Let's set the scene. It's 1948. Post-World War II America is thriving, and the country is entering a new era of prosperity and change. The U.S. Mint is busy producing millions of pennies, including the iconic Lincoln wheat penny, featuring the profile of Abraham Lincoln on the front and 2 wheat ears embracing the reverse side. These pennies have been around since 1909, and by 1948, they were still the staple of everyday transactions. But that's where the story takes a twist. Even though millions of 1948 wheat pennies were minted, not all of them are created equal. Some are common, but some are rare. And rarity in coin collecting isn't just about how many were made, but about surviving examples, condition, and, most importantly, unique errors that turn an ordinary penny into a collector's jackpot. Now, what kind of errors can make a 1948 wheat penny stand out? The first and most exciting error to watch for is the double die obverse. This error occurs when the coin is struck twice, but the second strike is slightly misaligned. What does that mean to you? If you look closely, you might see doubling in the date, 1948, or in the words, liberty, or in God we trust. This subtle doubling isn't just an interesting quirk. It can add thousands of dollars to the coin's value. Another fascinating error for 1948 pennies is the off-center strike. Imagine the coin planchet wasn't lined up perfectly during the striking process, resulting in a coin with part of the design missing or pushed off to one side. The more off-center the strike, the more collectible the coin becomes, especially if the date remains visible. Collectors love these imperfect coins because they're so unique and visually striking. Let's also talk about the rare, but highly sought-after clipped planchet. This happens when a section of the coin is literally cut off before the coin is even struck. The result is a penny with an unusual curved or straight missing edge, making it a genuine mint error that collectors drool over. These errors are uncommon and greatly increase the penny's value, especially when paired with good condition. Speaking of condition, that's the next key factor for any collector. Most pennies from 1948 were circulated heavily. That means they often show wear, scratches, discoloration, or other signs of use. But finding a 1948 wheat penny in uncirculated or mint state condition, shiny, sharp details, and free of marks, is rare and greatly sought after. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with a grade above 60 considered gem quality. The higher the grade, the higher the value. especially if the coin also has an error. It's also worth noting that in 1948, the U.S. Mint produced pennies at two locations, Philadelphia and Denver. Some collectors specifically seek out the mint mark pennies from Denver, especially if they have rare errors or outstanding condition. Mint mark varieties and errors combined with superb quality can send a 1948 pennies value soaring. Now, here's the kicker. While many 1948 pennies are worth just a few cents or a couple of dollars at best, the rarest error coins, especially those with double die obverse or clipped planchet errors in pristine condition, have been known to fetch eye-popping sums at auctions and private sales. Imagine uncovering one of these rare gems tucked away in a box or found in a roll of change. It's a moment that could change your life. In fact, some of these rare 1948 wheat pennies have sold for an astounding $79,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $79,000. For a coin that fits in the palm of your hand, carries over 70 years of history, and once was just a simple penny in circulation. So, what can you take away from this? If you own a 1948 wheat penny, take a closer look. Check the date for any doubling, examine the edges for clipping, and see if the strike is perfectly centered. If it's an error and in excellent condition, you might just be holding a treasure far greater than its face value. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the world of rare coins. If you enjoyed this video and want to uncover more hidden gems, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell. There's a whole world of coin secrets waiting to be explored. Until next time, keep your eyes sharp, your collection's growing, and as always, happy hunting.